Hello, and welcome back to Colonel O'Truth's Miniature Issues. Over the last few months I've been building Undercrag City, and things are starting to get pretty interesting. Since the beginning I've been planning underground streets, and now in order to continue with the mountain above, it's time to build these. This is going to take a while, and it's going to get quite interesting. The basic form of these streets has been sketched out since the very beginning. You can see there's plenty of red pen scribbles, a mass of wires powering the LEDs in the houses of Undercrag. And now I'm working on the banks of what's going to be the underground river. The foam board that's going to form the road has been laid out over the river where a bridge needs to be. But I've decided to cut it away in order to approach this from a more interesting angle. I'm working very quickly. All the glue is still wet when I'm starting to build up the riverbanks. This is just blobs of DAS clay, plenty of PVA. I'm going to smooth it out, make the blobs look less like blobs, more like rocks. Unfortunately, because of the way that the city is laid out, it was very hard for me to get a decent camera angle, so my hands are going to get in the way quite a lot here. I apologise for that. The keen-eyed will also notice that there are several occasions where I knock the tripod. So smoothing out the rocks with glue and daubing the riverbed. This is pretty tough on brushes. I use old brushes for this, wash them out with water, and fairly regularly have to throw them away. Now the toilet paper technique. I've shown this technique before. I'll put some links below. Basically, it's small pieces of toilet paper straight onto a lot of PVA and dab them down with water. This creates a ripple effect. You can just keep going until you're happy with it. If you haven't already or you're new to the channel, please do subscribe. I put new videos up every week, and this is turning into quite a nice little community. And I really enjoy receiving all of your comments and questions. To the children of Paul Williams, I hope you're enjoying your breakfast. Now I'm blocking out the shape of the walls. The archway there has been a mock-up piece since very early in the project. I've finally glued it into place. This is just built up a little bit at a time. It's purely conceptual. Nothing is sacred. I'm running more wiring. Need to get these circuits in place, ready for the buildings that will go in quite late in this piece. And these all run back to where I've got my batteries and switches. Using clay to secure everything in place. It's more effective than glue in this situation. And a black backdrop where the river is going to disappear under the rocks. Again, working very quickly here. I'm not waiting for things to dry in place. I've only got a very general idea of where this is going. I enjoy watching things develop and surprising myself. The overall order of events here is that I'm working from the outside edges of the caves inwards towards the back of the board. This is taking into account where I'm going to be able to get my fingers, my brushes, my knives and so on as I'm closing things in. I've got to be able to complete the model from the ground to the roof without any visible joins. Starting to take shape. I've got a great big piece of foam there, closing in the end of the river, and I'm wondering what to do with it. How about a staircase leading to the outside world? I've decided to add a landing, so the stairs can double back on themselves. As a rule, a windy staircase is much more interesting than a straight one. Please be careful when working with knives like this. Pieces of foam like this can slip quite easily while you're working on them. Your knife needs to be sharp. Blunt knives will also slip. And I've decided this piece should sit at more of an angle. Again, just adding interest. Cutting the steps in one at a time, from the top to the bottom. I don't mind that these are far from perfect. These are ancient caves. I want them to look old and mysterious and worn. And hollowing out the base of the rock where the river disappears. And a separate little curve finishes the layout, makes it all look a little bit less square. Starting to sculpt in the overhang as well. As I mentioned, I've got to think about the roof as well as the floor here. And I'll be building it up a little bit at a time. My original archway has almost disappeared under the clay. More and more blobs of clay. With the clay coating the walls, I get a brush and some PVA and start sculpting, smoothing out the joins between the blobs, adding new lines, generally trying to create a rocky appearance. This is where cheap brushes come into their own. and on it goes. It's worth mentioning that although this looks like a lot of clay, it's quite a thin coating. This means it's not going to take forever to dry out, and I'm not wasting a lot of clay. The foam is giving it its structure. Above all, I want these rocks to look natural, as if the water has formed this cave over millions and millions of years. The roads will be paved in contrast to the walls. I've started to include some cardboard shapes. These will eventually be the basis of buildings. Now for some paving. My pencil's getting worn quite low by now. It's done a lot of these stones. You'll also notice there's an archway at the top of the stairs now, leading out of the caves. Drawing in all these cobbles and pavers takes a while, but it's quite a relaxing process. It's nice to see the large areas of plain foam being transformed into something a little more special. I've marked out and numbered various buildings, not necessarily in the order I'm going to make them, but just for my reference. Inscribing the steps, there's a join here that needs to be hidden. I don't want any visible, long, straight lines. A little bit of clay and glue does the trick. And here's the archway as seen from the south wall and Southgate Square, which you can see in other videos. Starting to add paint. These are just my base colours, the dark grey that's now ubiquitous throughout the city, as an undercoat to everything you can see here. If parts of this look a little bit rudimentary, I'm not too worried. This is going to be built over and built over. And a template for the central block of houses. Now for some dry brushing. Light grey over the dark grey. For reference, the small building top left of your screen is the end of the water wheel house beneath the aqueduct. And you can also see the bottom of the statue at the steps that lead to High Chapel. The dry brushing is really starting to make things look more rocky, but it's far from finished. And a base coat for my river. As with the other sections of water, this is actually quite bright. It'll all be dulled down. The different tones the river will eventually have, light to dark, different colours, blues, greens, greys, will all add a lot of interest and make it more believable. And here are my templates for my buildings. here's another view from outside. The Citizens Guild House, the back of the South Gate, and in the bottom right, the Gate and Chapel Inn. Now to mess around with some lighting. I've already hinted at a mysterious green glow beneath Undercrag, in the chasm at the end of the waterfall by the water wheel. The caves are going to have a lot of this effect. Maybe it's bioluminescence, or maybe something more magical and sinister. Anyway, I'm soldering some wires to a green flickering LED. I covered this subject in another video, so again I'll put a link below. I test each stage of this process. I don't want to build the LEDs into the model and then find I've done something wrong or a wire's come loose. This is just sitting through a small piece of foam, which is glued in place behind the staircase. A lighting test here. Sorry about the poor camera quality here. It's having trouble with the darkness in the room. Now a flickering yellow LED. These are the same ones I've used in all of the buildings around the town. This is artificial light that would be built into a man-made structure. And so the basics are taking shape nicely. Please keep watching as I'm about to start adding buildings into the caves and bringing the roof across to start closing things in. I hope you're enjoying this so far, and I hope you'll join me next time. Bye for now.